Did we put it on Slack? We're starting?
We're starting. I wrote 2 minutes ago that we're starting in about 2 minutes.
So, it's yes or no. Is it on there, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, cool, perfect. So, you guys read the whole thing on Meetup, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to have a panel. You guys are going to be able to ask questions to the panel. Do you guys want to start presenting yourselves? Starting to the left, right?
Sure.
Cool. Yeah, you can start.
I'm the left.
Yep. My left, right? Yeah, my left to right.
All right. Should I stand?
This is
I'll
gonna
stand.
be
I'll
awesome.
stand. All right. My name is Steve Ramos. I work out of this space. Some of you know me. I've been a developer for now over 17 years. I've had a consultancy that I actually started my career as a freelancer for going on 10 years now, over 10 years. And over the last year and a half, I've been a co-founder in Tanvivo. By the way, my consultancy is ZapCrunch, it's on the wall there. And then Tanvivo, we do real estate technology for agents and brokers in Latin America.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I am Kevin Osorno. I'm the founder and CEO of the EdTech startup Neobard. And what we do is we actually help students in the online classes form study groups through a study partner matching algorithm that we use, and basically allow them to either meet up in person at a specified location using geolocation, or meet up online through an online studying platform. I'm based out of the university, so I'm a student out at the University of California, Riverside. My background's in physics, but I've been a tutor for about 10 years, and that's how I got my experience starting out with this platform and getting a feel for the needs of the students at the university. So that's my background.
My name is Ziah Miller. I am a software engineer developer, and about March I started my own company, and I kind of ran that for a little while, kind of testing the space, but I've been a developer for 7+ years, and recently I just joined a startup called MightyMed, and I'm their lead tech, they call me their lead tech officer. So yeah, so that's basically me. So
How's it going, everyone? My name is Jose Montero. I'm the founder and CEO of Blue. Blue is a mobile app that uses Bluetooth and also NFC to discover and to connect with people around you. I myself am not a developer. I'm just a sales guy. So I've worked with a lot of developers over the past 4 years, now with my company that I started, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of my insights and working with developers and how to kind of like approach the relationship amongst that part.
Hi everybody, I am Anand. I am with Pulse 360, the cool logo over there. That's mine. I resigned a couple of months ago because I decided to fully focus on the software that we're building, which is a B2B SaaS platform for financial advisors. It helps them document their advice in a fraction of the time versus the technology they currently use, which is copy and paste. My background is 2 decades of experience in the financial advisory space. I was also actually a developer, in quotes. I developed this particular software 5, 6, 7 years ago in Excel myself. I know everybody's like, come on man, you're not a developer if you do it in Excel, but I can make Excel dance. I started with BASIC actually when I was younger, and I decided to, hey, Visual Basic, that's gotta be the one and the same. Well, not really, but I learned the lesson. So I'm excited to share a lot of different lessons. I hope you guys get some insights. It may seem like we are kind of a little bit on the negative tone, but there's positivity in there if you get the message. This is really important. I've been telling Juan for a while that, hey, developers need to know what we look at whenever there is, developers connecting with us and how we are perceiving the world. So.
Wonderful. So again, this panel is open to questions from everyone here. I know we're also streaming this on Facebook, so any questions that come from Facebook, we're also going to be asking you guys. So, do you want to start the conversation?
Sure.
So you can kind of give us your experience looking for developers, working with developers, and what you learned throughout the years.
Sure. So I started the project about 1.5 years ago to kind of say, hey, what I did 6-7 years ago, I think, can apply on a bigger scale. So because I had done it in Excel, I'll say it right off the bat that 50% of the time I was wrong when I started this project. So I went on looking for freelancers in the Excel world. I bounced around all over the world, New Zealand, I went where they have excellent Excel developers, all the way here and whatnot. I hired a freelancer, one from Oregon through Upwork, and because the project was just such a massive scale, they kept telling me that, hey, you are pushing Excel to the limits. But with my experience, and this is where I say that it was my fault of not seeing the truth in what they were saying, the developers just said, okay, we're gonna just do what you want. And I wish that they would have really pressed and told me that, look, we're not gonna take this on because we're not gonna be able to deliver on you. But unfortunately, I got developers, I paid them, and went through several weeks of trying to communicate the ideas and whatnot, and it just wasn't coming through, and I had to cut my losses. That's when, unfortunately, I realized that, okay, there's lots of developers that may just take on because they just want the money. The problem is those guys now will never be on my list to reach out to. If somebody else is looking for an Excel developer, for example, I will never go back to them because they actually just said, okay, we'll just do whatever he's saying. He's paying us money. So that's one of the lessons I'll say, and we can pass it on and circle right back.
Yeah, so with my experience working with developers, the way kind of piggyback off of what he was saying is trying to find developers who are actually have a pretty much like good intentions on building like an actual software that will be successful. Because there is a lot of developers out there that will build what you tell them, but they won't be straight up with you in terms of like, if it's gonna work or if it's gonna like be able to pretty much be optimized for what you're looking to build. And so I guess with developers, I really like developers because they're smart. They know a lot of things that I don't know. I come from a background of sales, and so having that technical side of developers and people who actually have experience behind them and understanding how a whole kind of like infrastructure works definitely helps on our end for that.
I agree with both what they both said. Okay, so having a developer just accept whatever you say and not say what the issue is with that technology causes huge problems because as founders, they rely on the developer to give them the limitations of the technology and all the possibilities and capabilities of it. I'm right now working for a startup, the Mighty Med one, and we're going through a lot of prototype phases. They're constantly coming with ideas, oh, is this possible, or is this possible? And instead of saying, yes, this is possible, I was like, well, let me try to do that. Let me get you a prototype that's actually working, and we can build off of that foundation and pivot off of it. So I'm right now in a quick phase where I'm just doing nasty software where we can show that it's a proof of concept. We're actually able to do it, and if we actually need to do it, I was like, well, let me rewrite it, because right now I'm just showing what the capabilities of the technology are and the limitations. With that, it is a developer's job to be able to be robust enough to understand technology and to be able to go the right way. So I am a C# guy. I develop mainly with Unity and Xamarin. Yeah. C#. And so, but I'm aware of that, and I also have to be aware of what other teams are going to be coming underneath me, and what are their skill sets. And if we're going to be a web platform, or if we're going to be a mobile platform. If we're a mobile platform, I'm going to 100% go after C#. But we're starting to lean towards web. And C#, why it's great, is not the optimal tool for web. JavaScript is.
Oh, that's interesting.
Sorry, that kills me. That kills me. But C# has a lot of capabilities, a lot of stuff to do it. But I'm also looking at who are we going to hire underneath me. I'm not just looking at what I can do. I'm looking about the team that's going to be under me. So I'm right now creating some stuff in React Native. I'm starting working with JavaScript. I'm just trying to test out the capabilities and see what's there. But my prototypes are all in C#. So.
Awesome. So my story is going to be very similar to Anand's, which is as a founder, because I'm a founder at heart. I'm the crazy one. I'm the insane one. I'm the one that's saying we're going to make this happen. We're going to make that happen. We're going to take on the whole world. You know. But it's the like he was saying, it's the responsibility of the developer, not just to understand the technology, but also to kind of say, hey, hold up a sec. We can't really pull this off at this time because X, Y, and Z. My story with my developer I brought on, he was a gentleman from Moreno Valley. I don't know if you guys have ever seen The Simpsons. You guys are familiar with The Simpsons? What's the old man's name? Burns, yeah, Mr. Burns. Where he's standing in front of a bunch of lawyers, and he says to him, and he says, so is my money all gone? And he said, but I made all the right moves, didn't I? Oh yes, sir, absolutely, right on, sir. And so he stares at them and he says, I see it all now. You guys are just a bunch of yes men. I was making all the wrong moves, and you guys are too gutless to tell me. Isn't that right? And he said, oh yes, sir, absolutely. So that was my experience. That was my experience with my developer. Is that I would say, let's get this part done, and let's get this MVP version out to market. But all I kept hearing was yes and yes it was a hard hit for me to realize that I was making all the wrong moves at a certain point. So it's on top of knowing the technology, it's also a matter of kind of being the brakes for the founder, making sure that they're not going to be making something crazy or making something stupid, And that's something that I found out very early on as a founder, is that I had to find people who would say to me, no, Kevin, we're not going to do it that way because X, Y, and Z. So that's my story.
You have to remind me your name one more time.
Ziah.
Ziah said something that struck me earlier. He said, "Oh, can you build this, right?" And any developer, even if you're just getting started out, one of the most beautiful and exciting things about programming is the answer is always yes, right? And if we can't build it now, we will eventually, right? AI, etc. Like that's what's amazing about technology. But the simpler something seems to be, the harder it's going to be to program. And so honesty goes a long way. And honesty with yourself, honesty with your client. And I'm coming at it from a perspective of somebody who did freelancing for a long time and how I hire other developers. And most of my mistakes were rooted in the inability to be honest with myself. Yes, I could almost always do the job, but the question is a matter of resources. Can I do it within the time frame? And computer programming is one part science and one part art. When you get something to work just right, and maybe you learned a little something, there's an algorithm that you were able to pop out in like 10 lines, and it's like really doing what you want. Like if anybody has seen the movie GoldenEye, there's a character in there, his name is Boris, and whenever Boris, like he's a hacker, and whenever he does a hack, he stands up and he goes, I am invincible, right? And like if you've been like trying to kill this programming problem and you finally get there, like you feel like that, right? But the business world has no time for art, unfortunately. So sometimes there's a good enough solution, or you may not have the requisite experience or skills to be able to pop out the solution. You need to be honest at the get-go when money is involved. When it's a personal project, take all the time in the world, and go ahead and take your 3 months in order to write your custom webhook and your super fancy CI/CD, and for some reason you're gonna like write your own programming language to do something. Like that's absolutely fine for personal projects. You need to be honest with yourself when it comes to doing business. I like to tell clients, and then I try to keep this in mind whether they know it or not with developers, that there are 3 choices. You can do it fast, do it good, or do it cheap, but you can only choose 2. There's no way to do all 3, right? And if you promise that to clients or to employers, then in the immortal words of South Park, you're gonna have a bad time, right? So you're gonna have to choose 2 for yourself and kind of find out, like, can you do things cheaply and quickly? Then you need to admit that it's gonna take a long time. Can you do things really well and quickly? Well, maybe, but you better ask for enough money. Otherwise, if you don't ask for enough money, then it's not going to be worth it for you. And human psychology being what it is, you're going to switch to another project because the rent's due. If you're contracting, right? If you're working for somebody, well, then you're going to have a bad review come review time. So if there's any piece of advice that I would say you come out of this panel and kind of listen to that, what everyone else is saying is, can you be introspective and be honest with your skills? What are your skills right now? All of us, everyone in here can get better at what they do. Doesn't matter if you have like crazy experience like Fast or Yoan, or if you're just starting out. Who can admit they're just starting out? Okay, so all of you can get better, right? But just be honest where you are right now. And if you think you can get better, then just be honest with an employer, be honest with a client, and tell them, hey, you know what? I've never done this before, so let me do that a little cheaper for you. It's going to take me maybe like a little bit longer, but I'm going to do a good job. Make sure I do a good job. So if they want it in a month, and you say, I can do it in 3 because this is new for me. Maybe you won't get the contract, but if you do, and you deliver on time, then you got yourself a client for who knows how long. And that's much more valuable than kind of what I think a lot of times for us is servicing our own egos. Like, oh no, I can, especially like you're in your 30s, oh yeah, I'll just stay up all night and do it. Yeah, right. Good luck. Good luck.
I'm going to add one last thing to what he said is, don't just be honest with yourself, don't just be honest with your clients, but also be honest with your team, right? If you don't think you can, like he said, if you don't think you can pull it off in 2 or 3 months, but you can pull it off in 5 months, just say that. I'm like he said, you may not be brought on for the job, but if you do deliver, like you were honest, and more importantly, you have a position. So.
I want to add something as a developer's aspect. It relieves so much stress when you have a clear path. If you say something in the back of your mind like, I can't do that, you just made your life a lot more miserable in every aspect of your life. Because in the back of your head, you're trying to drink with friends and have fun. In the back of your mind, you're like, crap, I got 3 months and it takes me 5 months. And I'm not ever getting close to it. And your life just goes so much worse. So if you're honest and direct, your life is so much easier. I love one of the quotes that's out there where it says, I think we posted it on just one of the Slacks where it says, software development is not stressful, and it shows this old man, it says 26 David or something like that, 26-year-old David. Like, that's not me. It's not me because I like what I do, and I don't stress out too much because I'm honest about the stuff, and I know my work ethic. I am a very hard worker, and I make sure I try to get things done as fast as possible. The moment I think something's going to be destroyed in front of me, I let people know. One of my past employers, he moved on to Cat. My direct manager, he brought me to a review, and he says, communication will never be an issue for you. When you're out of work, I email you. I get an email from you instantly. And it usually says, I'm roaming. So if I'm out of work at my desk, I go see who else needs help. What else they need to do? Because I like to be able to know what's going on, because the last thing I want to do is find out someone else is slacking on their part that I'm waiting for, and then it just screws up my job further down the line. So it's be as honest as you can, because it's not just for the founders. Who cares about them? Care about your own sanity. Because if you go insane,
I like it.
Wait.
no, do it for yourself.
Who invited him?
do it for the founders, but like do it for yourself. Do it for your own health. Be able to know your skill set and be confident in what you do, and then your skill will improve and your happiness will improve, and you'll find out that if you enjoy what you're doing and you like your job, you're way better at your job. You are far better at it.
So, sorry.
I do have a question, because we do have entrepreneurs in the group, and then hopefully eventually they become startups, right? So it sounds like you guys you learned a lesson early on about educating yourself as far as the tech requirements for your projects. How did you guys approach that? How did you guys educate yourself about the tech requirements so that you can look for the correct developer?
Yeah, so I'll give my example, continuing on with the Excel bit. But before I go there, let me just counter something that he just said about don't worry about the founders. You do need to know actually what's at stake for us, right? I resigned my job. So if you're not doing your job or you're slacking, it's pushing me back to getting, any sort of traction. So I think it's something you need to keep in mind that, hey, these guys have lives too.
I didn't mean it any way.
I know. So the point about my experience was, like I said, I was wrong in trying to pursue a wrong technology. And then what happened is I just kept bouncing around still in that world. I did not want to go with a web-based software. The reason for me was, in my world, we have 80 tabs open on everybody. That's what we do. And I didn't want another tab to be added on for my website. So I kept just bouncing around, and then finally I talked with my cousin, who I thought was a Flash developer. And I was just sharing with him, I'm like, look, this is a bad experience for me. People don't communicate with me. I wasn't educated enough. And he's like, you need to meet with my, a person that I think will help you. So he came on, Jamie, and right away understood what I needed. And without me paying him anything, he developed something in what's called the Electron app.
Yeah.
And he emailed that to me and he says, install that. And I installed it and immediately fell in love. And he's like, with this, you're gonna get the web technology, you can get an iPhone app and all of that because you have a lot of the code base that's gonna be there, and I think you should do this. Now that was his recommendation, and I was open as a founder, like, obviously I've been burned, right? And I'm like, wow, this is it. So I trusted him. I then hired him at that point. I'm like, okay, this guy knows already. So that's how my technology was come across, is because I listened actually to the developer who decided that, what, I heard what he says, I heard what his problems were, and I think this solution may work. Let me code it up for him rather than just telling him. Nothing complicated. Literally, it was just a simple, and it was like, I was like, wow, okay. So that's how I came across my technology stack,
Very cool.
Yeah, so with me, when I was first starting this company about three and a half years ago, I was interviewing a lot of developers, telling them the problem that I was trying to solve. The fact that every single person in this room has an online identity and a smartphone, but yet I have no idea who maybe half of you guys are, right? And so I saw there was a problem in society of walking past people on a day-to-day basis, that everyone has an identity, but yet we're like ghosts just walking past each other. So I wanted to develop something that could be used and to facilitate introductions and to meet people and to kind of have people be more social. So as I was sharing my vision with developers, a lot of developers were telling me use GPS, right, location to kind of help to locate people, which I was already aware of, and there was other companies doing it. And it wasn't until I actually came across our current CTO, where I actually met with them. So the way I found them actually, so after a whole month of meeting with developers, every single developer told me GPS and didn't seem so excited about it. I kind of did a last resort and I actually put a Craigslist ad out saying I need a developer, this is what we're trying to do. And my CTO at the time, who's worked for Apple, Google, Kellogg's, Nike, very, very smart guy. It was during their kind of slow season in between projects, so they wanted to find something fun. So they never checked Craigslist before, but when I put that ad out, for some reason they had the urge to check it. They came across us, emailed us, we hopped on a video chat, talked, really liked it. It was a husband and wife tech team, Eric and Lauren Ocean, and they're out in Apple Valley. And so we decided to meet up in person at Farmer Boys. And I was like, Eric, I see this gentleman sitting across the restaurant right here. I know he's on Facebook or Twitter or something, or LinkedIn. How can I get that information? And what he said next kind of just blew my mind. He was like, Bluetooth. And I was like, whoa, okay, that's different. All the other developers kept saying GPS, and I always thought Bluetooth would be just for your car, your headset. Never thought about it to actually facilitate introductions or interactions. And from that moment on, it kind of opened up my eyes to this whole world of IoT and Internet of Things and using short-range wireless communications and different things. And so I hired him on. He started developing. Now, I think the challenge with him, though, initially was he's a very high architecture guy. He created the architecture called Blossom Sprout Core, which is currently running all of Apple's iCloud browser apps, like your calendar app, your wallets, all that kind of stuff. So he's a high architecture guy. And I think from my early experience, what I should have done better is do things that don't scale. He pretty much built us an app that was super nice and sweet, but it was like a Lamborghini motor in a tractor, right? And it cost a lot of money for that tractor, right? So going on forward, I realized that you got to do things that don't scale first. To do exactly what he's doing right now, what Ziah's doing, is just to test it, validate it. You know, why build a tractor that's going to work as fast as Lamborghini if no one's going to buy it, right? So learning that lesson, that it was a very costly lesson, but now going back, if I were to work with other developers, I'd for sure start with things that don't scale first. And I know, like, as developers, it's your baby. You want to make sure it's right, and it's good, and we get that. But at the same time, as founders, we also have, a lot of things on our end that we need to hit, deadlines, goals. And so with my CTO, he always overpromised and underdelivered in a way because we kept missing deadlines, kept missing launch dates, and that hurts our reputation as founders and as a company, when you don't hit these dates, especially if you have investors, they're like, hey, like, what's going on? Thought you guys were gonna release it, where's the Android? And so I had to learn to scale back and just do things less like more efficient, but less like scalable. Meaning, like, don't build a platform initially first for 1 million users. You just need to build something just for thousands of users, something that could just get you up and off the ground running quicker, just to validate. Because at the end of the day, you may find like a founder who has an exciting idea that may potentially be something big, but it's not. The saying is, are the dogs going to eat the dog food, right? So we need to first validate that before we can build this huge empire. Before before our wallets are drained and out of money. And so that was like my biggest lesson is don't do things that don't scale first, and then scale from excellence after that.
I want to piggyback off of what Jose is saying about like building things or not needing to build things that scale like right away. As developers, I think we have like our pet favorites, or like we could be really, really snobby or even condescending about technologies. Kind of like sports teams or political parties or whatever, like right? Like
the difference is I'm right.
I mean, there's even like the subreddit PC Master Race. I don't know if anyone knows that subreddit, right? And like me personally, like I wouldn't touch .NET with a 10-foot pole. Like I get on a Windows 10 machine and I disgust it. Like I don't want to. But I mean that's my stupid personal human side, right? But like the business side is like if it works, then use it. If it's the right thing, if it's gonna help us. Like for us right now, I'm talking about real estate tech and our markets in Latin America, blah, blah, blah. We're just using WordPress. We're doing a CRM in WordPress. We built a little utility to bring in some Twilio functionality, some WhatsApp functionality, to talk to this off-the-shelf CRM that we threw into it. And in the tech world, it's like, right? Sure. But in the real estate world over there, they don't care. They don't care. Like, does the website look nice? Does it run? Does it have the features that we want that no one else in the market has? Yeah. And that doesn't mean that that's what we're going to use forever. Because right now, we just have some select clients, some pilots, and we just need to get to a place with enough traction where we can convince investors that we're barking up the right tree. Okay, then we can get all philosophical about doing a React Native approach because we've got big plans. But for the time being, like what he's saying, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I have something to piggyback off of that as well. So now as chief tech officer, I guess. One of the concerns I have is, like they're saying, the software that you build is your baby. You're going to be working with it. Get that out of your mind, because other people are going to touch it and they're going to mess it up, and you're not going to recognize that child when it turns 18. So it's one of the things.
Amen.
So one of the things that I have to do is I'm developing all this software. I'm like, oh, this is really cool, and I have my favorite projects. Like the CEO, the founders will say certain stuff. I was like, I'd like to make that, and I'd like to continue with that. And then I'll build a prototype, and I was like, so what do we do next for this? And they're like, okay, we have it working, we'll demo for some stuff, we'll think about it, but we want this. I'm like, but that's not the point. I know that I have to be able to develop in a certain way where I can hand it off to someone. So every single thing I've ever developed, I comment a little bit there as much as I can, just in case, say it blows up and I have to take a different path in their products, and like, well, we're gonna pick up this product that you were developing, and we want someone else to do it. Can they just pick it up and go with it? And so I use Bitbucket, Atlas, and I have all my version control. I'm able to hand it off to someone so that they are able to build off of it. They will have a couple questions, but hopefully it's to the point where next time I say, I'm not gonna recognize it, but I gave them enough information for them to raise that child with as much care as possible.
Yeah. ZapCrunch is doing a consultation for a startup right now in the Seattle area, and the guy who built most of it, like, we're scared to death of something happening to him, because this company that we brought developers in to try to save this project, like, their board of directors is like on the verge of shutting it down, right? So so we need to build we want to make ourselves replaceable on the project, right? But to the client that we're working for, that shows them that we have their best interests at heart. So as long as we're around, they're gonna keep working with us, because we're building something of value for the company, not to make ourselves like an entrenched, appendage that they can't get rid of ever, right? We essentially, yes, it's important to make yourself like invaluable, but not from a technology standpoint, more from like a work ethic and execution standpoint.
Yeah, I'll add to that from my personal experience, not as a developer, but just from the finance world. I was actually brought back as a COO for this large practice. They manage about $500 million. And the guy that brought me back, he says, the reason I'm bringing you back is when you were with us, you made us all better. And you didn't care about your ego. You shared all your knowledge and made us better. Now we want you to take us to the next step. So just tying in with this, that's a very valuable lesson for all of you guys, that don't just think and don't hold your knowledge to yourself. Teach, give away, like, obviously this IESD is doing. But also when you're working with somebody, be open and just say, yeah, this is how it works, and these are the disadvantages of it, That leads me to the other point that I want to make sure that you guys all hear from us, is communication. It's super, super important to communicate clearly. Even if you're not hitting the deadline, just say, hey, I am not gonna make this deadline. What are the workarounds? I'll give a recent example. I was trying to get a project done with a certain timeline. I needed some stuff ready, and one of the developers was saying, yep, I'm working on it. And then a week goes by and I don't hear any status. Second week's like, okay, I got something come up. So this second week is, okay, I'm gonna work on it and work on the next part of it. Great, but when I went on and looked towards the end of the second week, nothing was done, and now my project, I had to change. I had to curtail back, but there was no communication like, hey, I'm sorry, or none of this. That adds to another level is I had to obviously let go of the developer, but then there was no communication back saying, I take responsibility. That would have gone miles with me. I would have just said, hey, this problem that happened, whatever, there was some issues, I let it go, you owned up to your mistake, you said sorry, fine. I'll keep you in mind for, if not for me, for somebody else. We're all as founders, we are walking in different circles, different networks. He just came and met with Tim Draper, one of the largest VCs. You know, I have Tim Jenkins as my advisor. Besides that, I am meeting investors. I'm meeting other business owners. If I ever hear like, oh, they're looking for something, I can always connect back. If I don't have a need for a developer, I can say, hang on, I can make that connection. That's how this world runs. So bear that in mind. Communicate, be open. Even if there's a problem, be open about it.
Yeah, definitely communication is huge as part of the founders as well, because development is one part of the thing, but we also align marketing with development. And so we'll have like put together a whole plan and execution for once the product's ready to launch. And you know, if there's an issue or some sort of something's coming up on the development side, just let us know. Like that would instead of like days before or a week before that it's supposed to happen, like let us know that you're incurring this problem. Be more open about it. It goes much longer. It goes much further than you know, because it kind of hurts all of our reputation as founders and even as the developers. You know, it's like, okay, like, are you not open to communicating with me because of those issues? You know, just be more open about it, because there's a lot of, I would say, responsibility as founders as well as like developers as and on the marketing team. Like it's all in one. Everything is kind of like tied into one. And so it's not just like, hey, it's an issue with that. You know, be more open so we can align the other sides of the business with the development, right? On that.
That's kind of one of my points is for your own sanity as well, communicate. Because if you keep all that stuff bottled up, it's just going to cause more stress. And so that's what was my main point, is communicate all your issues, all your concerns, your deadlines, your skill set, all that stuff, communicate it. Because if you really just bother yourself up and just constantly try to put yourself under unneeded stress, then it's just going to just backfire in your face drastically. And like I said, I like my job, I like what I do, and I don't have a problem communicating because I like people to know what's going on. That way I can relax and forget about it.
I was actually going to say one last thing about that, which is that in our startup, and I tell this to all my developers, the number one thing in our startup is communication. And you're going to hear this story over and over again among all the founders, because plenty of us, myself included, have nightmares with past developers who we say, hey, we're at the second week, I haven't heard back from you since we last communicated. And I've lost a couple developers that way because they just simply weren't communicating. And even for us, which we're a very early stage startup, that there's no marketing involved or anything like that, we still are trying to meet deadlines so that we can talk to potential clients. And if we miss those deadlines, like Jose said, it just looks bad on all of us. So it's a startup. So the way it happens is we fail fast and fail forward. That's just the way it works. So if we miss those deadlines, we're not only not failing fast, but we're also not moving forward at all, and that's a serious problem for an early stage startup where everything depends on those 2 weeks of development.
So you had a question.
Yeah. It's not such a important topic, I think, is when to come forward with concerns that you have about your abilities after you've already been hired on. Would any of you be going to just broadly explain a moment, perhaps not a particular moment, but maybe like in your own experience when you knew you weren't going to cut the mustard in one area and you had to come forward sooner than later? How did you handle that?
I actually have a disaster story.
I think we all do.
Yeah. Well, I was the developer prior.
I've been the disaster story too.
Yeah, but it had a great ending, because so what happened was when I was a web developer, I wanted to go into Unity, and I wanted to do C# and stuff like that. I went from JavaScript to mobile applications because smartphones at that time were just booming up. It was around 2012. So I got hired on by a company called Chameleon Power, and I told them, I'm a web developer, but I'm interested in Unity. My hobby right now, I've developed some minor things, and they said, okay, cool, come on as a developer. We'll have a senior developer lead tech kind of help you out with these apps. And I was making apps for Home Depot and Lowe's. And so I showed up at the project. So I communicated everything on my end, and I was hired for a job. So this is what I'm trying to tell you. If you communicated your part beforehand and you still get hired, and then they want more of you, that you never said you could do, that is not on you. You should not feel bad, you should communicate. So I communicated my skill set properly, I feel like it, and they tested me and I did all that stuff. I went there and they said, you're the senior lead tech developer on this software. And I was like, huh, okay. And I told them there's going to be a learning curve. And they said, okay, we have faith in you. And for 3 months I bashed my head against the computer trying to get that stuff to work. And the more difficult problem I still remember is I was making in Photoshop, basically dumbed down Photoshop stuff for houses where you can draw out the house and then you replace the product, the roofing, the shingles, all that stuff like that. Yeah, image process. So I had to count pixels and other stuff like that. And one of the biggest problems that I got hung up with, and it's super simple now, and it's so stupid, is between just sprites and raw images and textures. And that hung me up for 2 weeks. And it sounds so pathetic now, but I was so stressed at that time. And even I communicated and stuff like that, and that's when I started learning, I need to communicate that I don't even know what I'm doing. And even though I know, I was communicating to them beforehand, I had to let them know that this is a huge learning curve for me. I'm not a game developer, and a lot of the stuff that we're doing, we were gamifying house decorations. So, but with that, yeah, I was able to pull it off, and I did great throughout the job. We've got some other projects. I definitely excelled to it, but I did communicate to them, there's going to be a huge learning curve on this.
That's why research as a user story is absolutely fine. If you don't know, I need time to research this, that goes as a user story in your sprint.
And I would say also that there's stuff that you don't know about what their timeline is. And clients are really good at, they talk about a deadline, and I think somehow, I don't know, maybe this is just me, like that in the past, that line's like blurry. Oh, they want it by then, okay. But they might have a lot hinging on that day because they have this whole Google Ads campaign that executes that day, and they're gonna be putting thousands of dollars into it. And they just don't tell you that. They don't really have to, because you need to be a person of your word, right? Now, if there's gonna be a 1 week delay because of a surprise that comes up and your abilities and all that, it's not the time to be meek or sheepish about it or feel embarrassed. Tell them, hey, there's something unexpected. I like to refer to it like a mechanic working on a car. And sometimes stuff happens. You go in there and you see that there's something else broken or unexpected. But the sooner that you let them know, the better, because then they can reset whatever their plans are. And if you want empathy, you need to give empathy. I'll give a different kind of disaster story. You know, I got fired by a longtime client of many years over deadlines not being made. That was a failure on my part as a manager, as a business owner, because I should have fired my developer a lot quicker. I should have fired him a lot quicker because he didn't have empathy for me, right? And I should have just replaced him. And you know, I did end up working for that client again, not as much money or not as many projects. Because when they fired me, I said, I totally understand. Like, what do you need for me to close out our project? Here's all the passwords, blah blah blah. And you know, they appreciated that I got fired gracefully. But you know, if they had talked to me before those deadlines came in, we could have avoided that whole thing. Now, the client missed some deadlines on their part, right? But once you're not like meeting your obligations, you can't point to the client and say, well, this is your fault, right? You can tell them it's their fault at the beginning, right? But not when you're close to the end.
Because then it's on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll share my own CTO, Jamie. He's a superstar, and one of the problems I ran into with him was I would throw a lot of stuff on his plate. I've got freaking brilliant ideas going on. I think at least they're brilliant. And I throw a lot at him, and he didn't know some parts from, specifically, let's say the example was the database. I wanted something magically to happen, and it has to update the database and result back and whatnot. He doesn't have a database background, so what he did was he went on about 2 weeks trying to solve this problem because he's that type of guy. He just wants to solve it. When I reached out, I said, what's taking so long? He's like, well, I don't know, MySQL, or at the time we were using SQL Server, and I don't know these, codes and SQL and procedures and whatnot. And I'm like, you should have told me, because I could have brought in, paid for somebody who has an expertise just for this bit, and we would not have lost 2 weeks. He realized that, hey, and that was a lesson for him, was, hey, wait a minute, Anand doesn't think that I'm stupid just because I didn't know SQL or that. No, our goal isn't to, our goal is not to make you feel stupid. It's, let's get the project done, and if we need to bring in other resources because you don't have particular expertise on that, say up front, because that means, okay, now I, as the founder, can decide, is it first of all important, or drop it, or no, let's get on other resources and bring in help. And that's what we ended up doing, and we moved a lot further. So again, communication goes back to everything, we text you or we send you an email, reply back within 24 hours, if not faster. Even if you are in Vegas partying it up, just say, hey, I'm out of town, I'll get back to you in a day or so. Something to that effect that lets us know, okay, our messages are not going in a black hole somewhere and you're not responsible for your side.
So World of Warcraft just came out again for Classics. My founder texted me. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm on World of Warcraft. My brother's like, cool, just call me when you get off.
He spoke to you 7 days later.
Yeah. I did not call him until the next day. No, I didn't call him until the next day. And he's like, wow, did you stay up all night? I was like, yep.
That builds camaraderie as well. That's kind of that's part of the team building process. So, I mean, you don't have to tell everything about your personal life and all that. Nobody wants that anyway. But yeah, that sort of little thing, and then you find out that stuff. Like we recently brought someone into Tanvivo to start working with us, and we'll have the little like what do they call it, small talk conversations before our real meetings, not stand-ups. We keep those stand-ups snappy, but. He said, we're like, oh, what are you up to this weekend? Oh, I went hiking. Oh, I love hiking too. I didn't know that about him, right? And he actually told us, like, hey, I'm not going to be available this weekend. Even though he didn't have pending tasks, he was just kind of letting us know ahead of. He doesn't owe that to us, right? But we really appreciate it, like, as an organization. He's not even our employee. And he's like, oh, I'm going to be away in case you don't hear from me, right? And then I found out he goes hiking. Okay, we have that in common. And that's great. We like that. Get to know each other a little bit in addition to setting the right expectations.
Cool.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question from one of our members. As a developer, how would you handle a situation where you're being honest with the founder and about something not working, but they keep pushing for it?
Can I take that one?
Yeah.
We like to, in different agencies I've worked for, I hope no clients see this. But
keep in mind, guys, we are recording. So.
If you do, this isn't you. We add the PITA fee. Does anybody else know the PITA fee?
Pain in the ass.
The pain in the ass fee. So if they're pushing, well, that'll be X amount more. So go ahead, and if they go for it, like, fine, and then you're getting paid for that pain that you're going through a little bit more. And sometimes if something's going to take a long time and you're afraid a client isn't going to say yes to something, you're like, oh, this is going to take forever. You know what? Just take the risk and add more money so it's worth it for you, and you'll be surprised when they say yes. And if they say no, then they probably weren't the right client for you. They don't value your time. That's my answer. Anybody else, the other guys?
So one of my things for that is I try to find out what value are they trying to get out of it. Are we putting enough value into it that we're going to actually get that value back out? One of the things is, like, make things bare bones and then add the meat on a little bit afterwards and find out if because we could add. So I did simulators where you put the headset on and you just do all these operations on cat machines, learn how to use the Caterpillar machines before you actually got to the real thing to save money, all that stuff. And they're like, oh, we want AI walking around. Why? I was like, what value are you getting out of it? We can do that. But I argued with the system, like, what value does it actually bring to the training? Yeah, having people there, having them move around, we can create some simplistic AI, but having the advanced version that you want, what value are you going to get out of it? So when they find out the cost per value isn't there, they usually stop hassling about whatever feature they want to add. But if you may not know the value they're going to get out of it, so they might be pushing towards you to create this feature because they have customers asking them about that feature, and they think they're going to get a lot of value out of it. So it's trying to understand them as well. And like people say, have empathy for them, have understanding for the situations they're going through, and you're the developer, and you're supposed to be able to solve these issues, but just try to find out the return of the feature you're making.
Is that my developer Jamie asking that question? Checking.
I was actually just about to add something to what you just said right now, which is that's as a founder, that's actually a very good way to kind of have the founder or whoever you're talking to, the client, think twice before they bring up something. It's like, well, ask questions about it. Like he said, what value are you bringing? What purpose does this serve? And just they'll think about it twice before they bring it out to market or whatever. So those are good things to ask. Is just say something that will make them think twice about it. Just see how they respond.
Yeah, I think I'll add to that is just give them an estimate on the time perspective. Saying, hey, I know you really want this and I can see it. If I dedicate my time here, there's some other stuff that's going to fall behind. Are you okay with that? This is probably going to take 5 hours or 10 hours or whatever time you think as an estimate, but other things will fall back. Or do you want to reprioritize, move this to the back of the line, we'll keep it in mind, but let's get the other stuff, the bare bones like they were saying. That's a good way of, again, just clear communication without sounding like you are trying to be a pain in the ass developer that you don't want to get things done, right? Obviously, you're just say, I always, whenever I work, and whenever I hired people, I always look for one quality, which is, do they have what I call the principal mindset? Meaning, do they take ownership of whatever it is that they're doing and fully diving in and saying, okay, well, what's the big picture here? If I do it this way, is it going to hurt? Let's communicate with the founder or the executive, and that goes a long way because now we can see, okay, look, they have a stake in this because they are, from our founder's perspective, they're actually thinking bigger, like, oh, this is how it can actually affect everything. Well, thanks, now I'm aware, so.
I know do you have a question still?
I know I've asked her a question.
Yeah, I was
Been
going to say, but what about if they're asking for something that as a developer you just can't do?
You just say
And
so.
even though you tell them, they keep pushing you what it would take to get you to implement.
Just say that, hey, we're going to need some other help. Can I reach out to a couple of my friends and who does have that level of expertise, and we can find out what fees they're going to charge, and then we can decide.
Because you got to calculate your hours versus the hours of hiring someone else quicker, faster, and better. You're not going to be the best at everything.
Yep.
There's no problem saying, yeah, this will take me 100 hours, or take this person 2.
No, and you would think it would devalue you, but it's actually the opposite in our minds. It values you higher because you're honest and upfront. Like, we all have weaknesses, My wife will give you a full list if you ask her. So it's just. She's
posted it online.
Yeah. April, do not work on that WordPress site. But just be upfront and honest, and that values you higher, actually. Last, you had a question, I think.
Actually, I have quite a few. So far, this conversation's kind of been founders to relationship with developers.
Yes.
I'm considerably more interested in the aspects that you guys, I'm sure that it's all diverse with each one of you, but you want to start a business, you want to start a startup, right? You're coming at it from different capital perspectives. Maybe you have some money, maybe you don't. So I'm just interested in each one of your approaches to that, whether or not you have some assets available and so on and so forth. In addition, I'm pretty sure that, just a follow-up question, but that'd probably be a little quicker, but I'm pretty sure I can see the monetary structure for most of you guys. Kevin, you gonna try to sell yours to schools? Is that, I mean, where are you gonna make money on that? On your
So is a specific question about my startup?
Yeah, it's your startup. I'm just wondering what your approach is.
What's your
to-
revenue model?
Yeah, your revenue model.
That's a good question. So for my startup, our revenue model is something. It's basically we're selling this as an enterprise software to community colleges.
Oh, right.
So this is a module that's built into the existing LMS system. So the schools will be purchasing that to use as part of their LMS software, so they can use it in the classroom and across various departments.
That would be my guess. Okay, so now everybody,
All right.
where did you start from, and how do you approach it?
Yeah, so I'll tell you my financial situation, and this is kind of ties back to what stake we have in, right? I funded this out of my own pocket, so I think I'm probably, just did the taxes, god damn it, it's like probably 80 to 90,000 so far in. Because a lot of it I've paid for developers that promised me the world, and unfortunately I lost. So I have that. I resigned from a very well paid 6-figure income. For 2 months I'm getting withdrawal symptoms like cocaine. I was tied to that, and I was like, so I have a personal runway of, by next April, if this is not there, I'm losing my house. And my wife and we have decided that that's the risk worth taking for us.
But what's your revenue model? Is it a licensing or software service? Or?
So the revenue model is, because I'm going to serve very specific financial advisors, and they generally run their own businesses. So it's a platform price, minimum is $250 a month, and then a per user, either $9.99 or $15 a month. I may do an introductory pricing next year, just when I launch, hopefully, at $99 a month, just to try and do a land grab situation. So, that's my financials. Obviously, you guys can pitch in yours.
Yeah, so with my story, I had no experience in tech. Before this, I was a manager of LA Fitness, managing about 8 sales employees. So I'm a sales guy and an idea guy. So this idea came to me in 2012, wrote it down, and didn't do anything with it until summer of 2015. And what made me kind of jump into this was the fact that I was making pretty decent money at LA Fitness as a salesperson. And I was like, why am I working here if I could go and start my own thing? Like, this sales could always be a fallback. So I decided to leave, and that summer, I was actually one of my best friends that's over there right now. We were talking just about life, like what are we gonna do? How are we gonna make money? How can we change the world, right? And this idea kind of came back up as I was going through my phone of notes. This was the only idea, for some reason, had a star next to it. And when I saw it, I got like this chills of assurance down my spine that was like this is it. I don't know what this is, but I know this is something. And that's when I kind of decided to burn the ships and jump for it. Now at that time I had some money saved, and so when I made that decision, I had no idea how I was going to make this happen. Right? I'm a huge believer in law of attraction. Thoughts become things, and if you worry about how you're going to do something, you're never going to start. So I decided to just start and just build the parachute on the way down, kind of thing. And since then, I first started, I hired a developer in New Mexico, and completely just took my money and didn't even hear from him ever again. That was my first experience with a developer. I was like, damn it, I need to find someone local.
What's their
right?
name?
Adam, I forget the last name. but yeah, so I really wanted to find someone local, right? And that's how I kind of did the last resort, Craigslist kind of story on that end. And for me, the money and the money situation, I did a friends and family round in 2016. We have about $500,000 or more invested into this technology. the biggest, we have a patent as well on our technology for building a social graph off of Bluetooth interactions, autonomous interactions between people. So like here in this room is a social graph, a real life social graph that's not being recorded. So our technology is able to record this type of interaction on how long we've been next to each other, how many times we crossed paths, and so on. And the money kind of just came, like, I'm a sales guy, so I raised the money when I need to raise. I mean, we ran out of money like 2 years ago, so we were running on thin, and it wasn't until this past month that we actually started generating revenue. So for me, you know, most 98% of businesses fail not because they run out of money, but because they give up. And for me, I've always been the one to just stick through, and like, this is my decision. I decided to do this not because of the money, but because of the big vision. I wanted to create a platform that could really help people be more social, break the ice with meeting new strangers and so forth. And that's really what pulled me, and you know, and my why that's taken me this far of not being paid. I haven't paid myself. I paid all my friends and developers and team, but not myself, because I'm in it for the long run. And so now that we just, our first month of sales, we were selling these, which is our smart business cards. Last month we started selling, we broke in at about 21,000 in sales last month, and are on track to do about 50. But the point is like the money situation will come eventually for the service you've rendered, right? And so the point is like also, so law of attraction. I just know it's coming, and you got all, and I know like, you know, there's a lot of people like my team are very realist, so they always have to like bring me down a little because I'm always floating up here. But it's a good balance, and I know for a fact that one day this application Blue will be in every single person's phone, and that's kind of like the big vision of it. And yeah, so when it comes to raising money too, as you're starting a company, if you want to start your own, get an MVP. Don't build the Lamborghini motor in a tractor. Do the MVP first, validate the market, or the dog's eating the dog food, and then go and raise the money. And raising money is a full-time job. You really have to, it's a numbers game. You can't get discouraged. I had probably like over 50 to 100 investors tell me no, you know, and I'm still getting the no's, but at the end of the day, you will run into those right people and investors that see the vision and believe in you and your team, that they'll be willing to write the check. So, yeah.
So I have a kind of, so I started my own company in March. I'm kind of putting it on the back burner, and I'll kind of go into the finances stuff on my end. So last year in August, around this time, I was flown out to Seattle, I was flown out to San Francisco, I was flown out to Texas, I was flown out to a bunch of other places, because I interviewed Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Microsoft. The only big company that didn't interview me was Apple. But all these companies were very interested because my specialty was in augmented reality. And at that time, they were all just interviewing me for augmented reality and where it was going at that time. And I got a job offer from Johns Hopkins for one of their laboratories. I also got a job offer from John VR, some other places. So I was in some job offers, and then I was like, you know what? I know where the industry's going. I think I should start my own company. So I researched the market. I tried to find out as much information I could to do that. I looked at my savings. I had a good amount of savings, and what happened was, when March came around, well, beginning of the year, I told my company, hey, I want to go to part-time, and I want to pursue my own thing on the side. And they said, no. So I was like, what do you mean, no? You can't say no. And they're like, yeah, no, you can't. I was like, okay, 2 weeks. That literally how the conversation. They go, well, you're working on a lot of projects. We really like you to stay. We'll give you some more money. I was like, well, how about this? I work on my thing on the side. And they said no again. So I just quit. And I lived off my savings, and I got some other people who joined board. Now, the reason why I'm coming through on the back burner for right now is because I can't do everything myself. The other founder, Nick, he now works for Google. He got a job. And another founder who's going to help me out, they took another opportunity to just live a more simplistic life. They were overrun by a bunch of stuff, so take a really simple job. Now lives out in the Boondocks. Jeff. So with this, I still hustled at it, but I can't do everything. So what the good part about me is I'm a software developer who's 95% extrovert, which is not common. So I can do the sales, I can do the marketing, and I can do the development. but I can't. I can't do all of it. I need help. So I got out here and I was doing my thing and trying to hustle and trying to figure out what I was going to do about it. And then I ran into some other people who had their startup that they were trying to do. And I know working with a pack, you'll have a lot more success. So I kind of threw mine in the back burner. I'm working with Mighty Med as their chief tech officer. And I have 15% of the company. So, and us together, has anybody seen What We Do in the Night or what the vampire documentary?
Yeah.
The energy vampire? That is me. I get more energy off of other people's energy. I can't be by myself. I'll get just down. I'm an extrovert. I need other people. So I put mine on the back burner. I'm kind of focusing, helping them out with their company, their startup, because I build off of other people's. I get excited and I just bust out a bunch of software. In fact, they're like, hey, we have this prototype. How long would it take you to make this prototype? I was like, probably 2 weeks. A week later, I was like, I have it done. Because I had so much energy off of their excitement that I just stayed up coding it until I had it done. So with that, when you go to think about start a company, find out what type of person you are and see if you have the resources, not just monetary resources, emotional resources, people as resources to be able to accomplish this. Because what's going to happen is if you think, you know what, I don't quite have it now, like you can get them later, you got to understand what is the worst case scenario. What is the bad thing? Like you might lose your house in April, I don't know.
Yes. I am planning to move into Excite and figure out who I need to kick away.
So with that, just wear your things. And so fortunately for me, my loss was my savings. And really, I'm not married. My dog passed away last November.
Oh.
So, and I just had nothing to lose. And my skill set, why I'd love to stay in a certain area and be closer around family, there's still a job off on the East Coast.
Yeah.
The West Coast, yeah. But I have a good skill set that's worth value. It's worth, so I can easily transition to something that's going to pay me well. So I still want to work with startups. I still want to be ambitious and keep going at it. So that's why when I saw a bunch of other ambitious people and their energy was just glowing, I'm like,
So you came in as a stakeholder. Do you feel like that makes you want to make them successful more?
100%.
Well, so then the question becomes, how do you guys feel about bringing stakeholders in to be part of your company, thus solving the issue where the developer doesn't care whether, because he's just getting paid?
Yeah, no, I mean, I am open to offering equity to the right person. Obviously, I have been burned by enough developers that, now I'm gonna go through some experiment. You gotta show me you're worth it, but I'm open for that. But like I said, I'll go back to the point, you have an equity or not, you should always have the principal mindset.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna put in 110% of your effort, because you never know where that's gonna lead, I may not have the opportunity for you currently, right now, for example, but heck, I am in the middle of lots of startups and meeting with lots of different people, and hey, look, this person is working super well. I've already made referrals, for example, for April. She's done a fantastic job for me on my website. She doesn't know what's coming yet, but still. I've already started referring, for example, I spoke to Tim about her. And it's like, okay, so now we know, okay, eventually, hey, April's the right type of person, for example, to bring on because she had that mindset of the principal mindset.
Yeah,
And guess what? I know her name from Anand, and we're a WordPress shop right now, right? And I know that his site was done in WordPress.
You're not having her right now.
I just want to clarify. So I did not get equity at all at first. They just saw my tech and they liked me as a developer.
Yeah.
What made them give equity is they saw what type of person I was. It had nothing to do with the I started developing stuff for them, and they saw the energy, and they knew that if they gave me something, I'd be communicating to them about the possibilities and stuff like that. And then they realized, and this is actually why they did it, why they jumped me on board as the CTO, is because I'm more concerned about doing things right than taking money from them. I'm more concerned about...
Yeah, but don't you think you're an exception to the rule?
Yes.
I mean, if you're a startup,
No, you
seriously,
are.
question is, if you're a startup and you have all these developers and whatever, and you don't have a whole lot of liquid capital to be putting out for whatever, you have to offer them something, right?
Correct.
And thus,
Yeah, yes, they do. They were actually offering me cash at first. They were like, "Oh, we want to pay you to do this," and it just developed. They're like, "Oh, we haven't paid you yet." I was like, "You have some really good ideas, and this is like that. You can pay me in the future because I know I'm going to be invaluable." I did put my value out first, and with that, they kind of just gravitated towards me, and they just like, "Yeah, we like how you think. We want you to be able to be more part about this." So.
Yeah, so and Anand mentioned like give equity to the right person, not the right skill set, the right person.
Yeah.
So there's risk on both sides, and that's where the empathy comes in again. We offered someone equity like to come in as a tech partner like early on, and this person balked at our offer and said, well, that's X% of nothing. You have nothing. And it's like, well, I don't want to work with you now. Like, you may have you may have really great skills, but you don't believe in what we're doing. So like, why would we even like increase any kind of offer to you? First of all, you're condescending. So you're not a team person, and we don't have nothing. Like, we have combined like 30 plus years real estate marketing experience. Like, I have 17 years development experience. We have like X amount of clients in 6 to 7 countries. No, we don't have nothing. Like,
regardless, the right equity holder would say, "I'll make it something," right? Like,
yes,
you want them
yes,
to
exactly.
You have to believe in the vision, right? You have to see that, hey, this isn't, you're not programming a bird feeding app.
Right.
Sorry if anybody is, but you know what I mean.
Dang it, I'm going home now.
Obviously, as a developer, you have to see that, right? I'll go back to one other thing that was kind of mentioned is that, I brought on a developer from here who I thought about, okay, I'm gonna give equity to this person. Had super skills, smarter than me, smarter than my CTO, smarter than a lot of people. And I was like, okay, that's likely an equity position. And in fact, I started communicating with my attorney as well as Tim and others, like, hey, what's a fair equity for us to part with this person? You would be an absolute superstar on our team. So I was ready, and what I found out as our relationship progressed was like, and this is another point for you guys, is because the guy is super smart, he was very arrogant. He basically made us feel like we were putz. And I'm like, we let it go. Because I was looking at his skills. I was like, holy cow, this guy's a superstar. Turns out that his attitude and arrogance drowned him because I had to let him go when he wouldn't even decide to meet me. Because he's like, well, you're calling the meeting, so you should come and meet me. Excuse me? So don't have arrogance, especially when you do have the skills and there's a potential, you believe in the vision, right, of the founder, and you see the software that's, potentially going to make some money. So it's a both-way street, obviously, from an equity position.
And there's a reason for that too, right? Because it's like Steve said, like you want to give equity to the right person. Early on, I made that mistake. The gentleman I brought in, the same guy that was from Moreno Valley, he told me, I told him, look, I will give you 15% stake in the company. And he also balked at that offer, but I made the mistake of getting him more when I did not know who this person was. So what happened? What ended up happening was I would go weeks without communicating with him, and I made that mistake of giving him more than 15%. I'm not going to say how much it was, but I gave him more than 15%, and nothing was getting done. He just kept saying, "Oh, well, it'll be done eventually." He wasn't even giving me deadlines. So now, as a founder, that's what I do now. Is that I don't give shares to anyone until I know who this person is, and until you know their work ethic and that they believe in your vision and that they're willing to put in 110%. That's when you can start looking at giving shares. But until then, we don't need to do that.
So, as a developer, and you're trying to go to a company, you're expecting to get shares or equity, that's actually nonsense. Because I have equity in this company because I proved value, and they didn't invest in my skill set because they can get that skill set by paying someone.
Yeah.
None of them. They saw my ambition and my drive towards that. Now here's the thing: as a developer, you're like, oh, I'm bringing value, so I should get equity or I should get something out of it. But it doesn't matter what you create. If the founder's not pushing it, if you don't have salespeople pushing it, you can make the most beautiful Porsche, and people will only pay for like a little Hot Wheel car. Because depending on who's selling it, who's pushing it, the founder is so important on if the success of the company is going to happen. Because you can make the best software, the most elaborate code, and if it's not in the right eyes, if it's not getting to the right people, if they're not hustling, if they're not doing their part, you're going to fail. So you're actually, I hate to say this, as a developer, you're not as important as you think.
Yeah, but that's why some developers want their money first, right
Yep.
there. That's why that right there. You know? So I want to find out who's the CEOs.
Well, you have to look at it both ways, right? Obviously, as a developer, you have to see if the founder is cuckoo or no. There's there's something that will happen because they are spending the time. You see them, like, hey, they're making the effort. If I was just honestly, if I was just sitting around waiting for Jamie to do his stuff, I'm sure I would have lost him because he's doing his part, but I'm just like, oh, let me add on another feature. You know what I mean? Right. So it has to be a both ways. You have to be a people reader to a certain degree. Go have a Starbucks and enjoy a little bit and find out like, oh, okay, this is.
Can we make a Bluetooth app about that? I'm not into Bluetooth. This is your Bluetooth expert right here.
I'm making a Bluetooth bird feeder.
Yeah.
Good luck, my pen is shot.
It works with augmented reality.
Yeah. I'll add something else. I had an experience. I went to, and some of you may be from the UCR boot camp. You're not part of the program that I'm talking about. I went previously. And I was excited that, hey, you know what, I may be able to get cheap developers, right? And maybe give them equity and whatnot. So I went there, and what I learned was a lot of these developers have taken a 6-month course of coding as whatever it is, boot camp, and I started asking them about not their skills, but I started asking them their passion, what they did before. I found out some of them did, that one of them I think was an X-ray technician, another one was a salesperson, whatnot. So what I did after that is I reached out after them to several of them, and I sent out an email. That was 9 months ago, and I have not gotten one reply. I heard from other people that, hey, one of the person out of the group I sent got a job. It would have been nice to just say, hey, thanks, but I'm not interested. I don't have what you need. Nothing. I just asked them just to have coffee at a Starbucks, public location. Apparently that's,
I gave him like 20 reasons that didn't work out, but you didn't take any of them.
No, I mean, I understand everybody as a developer, you guys are, potentially introverts. But I'll tell you one lesson I've learned what Jose is saying here, and we should all know, he's a sales guy. Guess what? We all are salespeople. You may or may not have done it, but you're selling yourself day in, minute by minute, every single day. Believe in that. Get some sales books. Pick up what are the cues of how do you sell yourself, but just sell anything. Because you all are salespeople, believe it or not.
I hated sales before too. Like that just salesman always gave me that kind of feeling. But then once I got in the field and actually, there are always those salesmen out there, but if you believe in the product or believe in yourself, then you're a salesman. And then I wanted, going back to also the equity is I've learned early on as well, I probably won't give equity to someone who's asking for it up front without doing any work beforehand or even doing that. And then also another thing is I'm going to start doing NDAs more often and all that. But yeah, everyone here is a salesman at the end of the day, and you need to learn how to develop this people skills and learn how to work relationships and communicate with people around you. Because for me, I used to be an introvert. I used to not, like, the first time I did public speaking was in front of 5 friends at a house for an MLM company that I was involved with. And I was sweating, I was stuttering, I didn't even know what I was doing. I was just up there making nonsense. But as I kept doing it more and more, now I could talk in front of thousands of people very fluently, could present, and I may not show it, but it is nerve-wracking. It's like I go up there and after I get off stage, my stomach's like hurting. I'm like, ah, right? But it's about getting out of your comfort zone, because you could be the greatest developer, but if you don't have that people skills or that communication, you're not gonna get out there. You're not gonna be known. You're not, you know. And so I really stress like social skills a lot. That's why I'm building this apps to help people be more social, to kind of be the icebreaker for people. But go out there and like listen to some books. A very good book that I've read is How to Win and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Yeah, there's a lot of them out there, and just you know, listen to a few of them. You know, like work on your skill set as developers, but also communication.
There's a semi-famous Reddit AMA where this guy's, I don't know, he's done interviews for like all the major players, 900 and something, whatever, and they asked, the top question is, what's the one thing, you know, when you do tech interviews that people blow it on? He just says, you know, they come in and they're not enthusiastic at all about whatever. And he says, it doesn't matter how good you are at your skill. If you can't work with my team, you're useless to me. He said that's the number one thing. They walk in, they don't smile. Right. Nobody wants to work with a miserable person that's not enthusiastic about, you know, and if you can't communicate with my team, you're useless.
It's energy. And I want to say, like the step of like being here and stuff like this, like that's like the great first step. You know, the books are great, but availing yourselves of the resources, especially the local resources, like if you're new around here, like this sort of thing like didn't even exist, like not to this reliable extent like a year ago, right? Yeah. This is really great. There's a local Toastmasters group nearby here that I believe meets on Thursdays. It's right down University. If you don't know what Toastmasters is, it's an international organization for public speaking. Avail yourself of that. Here, the third Wednesday of each month in the morning, I see Walter there a lot. 1 Million Cups, where you can practice your pitching. I've pitched there 2 or 3 different times. I don't know if Jose's pitched, Anand has pitched. You've pitched there as well, right? Yeah, he's pitched there. He's also
I've pitched there. Peoria, Illinois.
There you go. He's pitched. At the it's a national organization. 1 Million Cups. There's another one in and I mean all of us can. We're all founders, so we can bloviate and talk forever. So I shouldn't keep going. But afterwards, ask us about. We've been to many different kinds of events around here. Right?
Yep.
So I just had a question, not necessarily related to the whole profit of the startup, which I know a lot of people here really care about because we all want jobs. But you know, I'm new to tech, so one question that I do have, because my background is like I used to be a community advocate. I had a nonprofit going and all that. So I'm curious because a lot of you guys would mention that, you know, that there's like a time for a hiring process, that you need a specific developer for whatever need. When that happens, I'm just curious, does it ever like, do you guys ever think about maybe like a need to diversify your work base? Like, do you ever think like maybe we should like look for, you know, women, or maybe we should look for specific people that aren't necessarily represented in the tech industry? You know, like my nonprofit was focused specifically on women who had, you know, who had prison sentences in the past but are looking for change. And so I'm just curious, like, is that something that you guys ever think about, or do you just hire anybody?
Go ahead. Can I speak? Because we just talked about this recently with the person that we brought on as a contractor. I interviewed several people. One reason that I liked him over other people is because he speaks 3 languages. He's also a different culture. Our team, we're all about bicultural, since we're working in Latin America, but we don't talk about bilingual, or my CMO reminds me of that a lot. Bicultural, because we have to like understand like both sides of it, especially since it's international business. Like you have to just be more understanding about all that. So when I see somebody that's like they have a different experience, especially if they speak a different language, it doesn't have to be Spanish. This guy like speaks French, Chinese, and English, and I'm like, that's awesome, that's great. Even our mentor, Justin Radica has been huge help for us, and he was like, really? You chose him because he speaks French? Is that what like convinces you? I'm like, dude, you're a French major. Like, he's a French major in college, but became a programmer, and now like he's a startup founder and advisor, mentor, and all the consultant and all that sort of thing. So we do, but I think if I don't know.
I'll answer to this because obviously there's something that I'm gonna probably have to address at some point. To me, the most important part is having respect. I don't care you're white, blue, yellow, whatever. I mean, I'm brown for Christ's sakes, you know. I don't really care about that, but I care about you as a person. Have respect. You're holding up yourself well, and you are communicating clearly. Those are the important parts. And then, of course, I would look at the skills. Like, do they have the skills for whatever it is that I'm doing? And if the person doesn't have as much of a skill, but blows me away with just how they present themselves and how they are, that I will take over somebody who is top-notch superstar that I just fired, you know, because they didn't have the personality. So it's to me, it's not the naturally. I'm not gonna necessarily go and look for. Okay, I'm only gonna look for a woman, or only a white person, or a black person, or whatever. Hey, first, how are you coming across to me and then my team? You know, are you gonna disrupt the culture we're trying to build, or are you gonna fit in perfectly well?
I'm gonna second Anand on that one. I know this is gonna sound kind of strange to come out of a founder, a startup company, but we're blind to all of this. It doesn't matter, like he said, what color you are, black, white, well maybe not orange, but you get the idea. But the thing is that as long as you're someone who's who like he said, shows respect, and more so is someone that will fit in well with the company. Do they believe in the mission? Are they someone who you can see is going to pull their weight in their work? And on top of that is it has all the skill sets. The skill sets is sometimes you can almost say even secondary. But if you believe in the mission and you will be the one to make this go to market and be the most wild product out there. And that's what we're going to look at. That's almost it's just as important as the skill sets.
No, but I ask because like I feel like I hear that a lot, but I feel like though people are blind to that, there is a need though. Like we can't deny the statistics of what's really happening.
The problem is
no, but like is there any active do you have recruiters actively go to communities that are not that don't have resources?
So here's the problem for my industry. I'll tell you, financial advisors. I think it's 76% or something are men, probably more white than anything else, and 24% or so are women. We in our industry are aware that there's that lack of women coming in, and we want women to come in. The problem is, it's not just us. The women has to make a move. I cannot tell you how many times we've got students and men walk into our doors and say, hey, you know what, can you guys teach me this world? And I've yet to see a woman come in and do that. So the problem, what you're saying, is a bigger problem that, hey, you need to make yourself available to us and come out and say, and go to these meetups and say, hey, I'm looking for help. So it's a both-way street. You know, I think most of the people are looking for good people, and then the skills, like everybody has said here, you could learn. You know, you can watch a YouTube video and figure something out if you can't figure it out.
So I'm going to say a personal experience about something like that, because I'm definitely on board of what you're saying about being able to get more diversified people in there. But and this kind of goes to what he's doing, is I taught kids after-school programs on how to code. And when I was coding with 10 to 13-year-old kids, the ratio between men and women, all races and all like that, were pretty even.
Yeah.
Like I was like, that's fine. The moment I started teaching 18 to 20, white males, almost all of them. And I was like, what happened? Teaching these kids, they were all excited, ready to go for it. But the people who signed up for the classes, I thought, hey, I taught all these young kids, we're gonna keep going up. The diversity is gonna keep continuing. Class started, 30 white guys. I was like, huh. Now granted, this is in Peoria, Illinois, but at the same time, it did make me think, what am I supposed to do? I'm sitting there trying to get my skill set the thing, and I would like to encourage that, and I want to encourage that.
But by the way, my mom was a programmer. So female, Hispanic, immigrant programmer, right? And the ratio of like her like being in that world, being in class, going back to college while I was in high school, and being in that class, being the only female. By the time I got to college, like, guess how many women were in my programming classes, right? The ratio was like still really low. So I find it to be like a larger, more societal, more political problem that we would love to see that even out, right? And of course, like when organizations get bigger, then they have chief diversity officer, and you have departments that are seeking to even that out. There's a podcast I really like called the Startup Podcast or something like that, about they're making Gimlet Media. It's a podcasting company about forming it in the first place. And they talked about how there's studies that when you have more diversity, not just between genders, but also different backgrounds and ethnicities and all that, like you get a better workplace, a better product, etc. But like you need to not die as a company first to be able to like expend the extra energy to like go out and do that and reach out in the community and all that. Like all of us are like treading water. We live here like 6-7 days a week. I see these guys here all the time.
IESD. I've been hiring and working in the tech industry for over the last 2 decades, and who I work with and who I hire, from the first time that I came to this group, one of the things that really just impressed me was how many females and the diversity in the group. Really, like even from the classroom setting, just like I said, that ratio was really bad. And I came in here, and man, there was just so many females and all different backgrounds, whatever. And I was like, wow, look at the interest in the movement. So yeah, this group is, I don't know if it's the group or if the ratio is just getting much better, but they've done you guys have done a really good job.
And by the way, there is a woman-specific co-working space that just opened up on Main Street.
Is that the Pie Lady one? I saw somebody post something about the Ladies of Python or something.
No, an actual like co-working space.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that opened up Main Street. It's near Graham's Barbecue up there, on the other end by Prohibition, right over there. So like the seeds are planted. Like go get it. Like go get it.
I just want to say something real quick, kind of about the thing about the diversity, because they've done, like he mentioned, there's surveys that the more variety of people you get, the better your software is. And I forget what company, they all had right-hand developers. That's all they had. So they hired a left-hand guy, and turned out like their actual software became better and more efficient, and started raising up in it because left-hand developers were like, oh, well, you have it on this side, or
Are there any southpaws in here?
Yeah.
Any southpaws? All right.
So
You have something to say?
So we have a question. No, I have some, like what you're mentioning is a societal issue. I own a bridal store. I put out ads for salespeople. I only got women. I had a trucking company. I put out ads for truckers. I only got men. So it's like a societal issue. How many men want to sell in a bridal store? How many women truck drivers are there? There are, but percent-wise, they're not. So, and especially at the level they're at, they don't have the funds and the capacity of time to actually be searching.
There's a question in the back.
Yeah, well, what I would consider is that if you find that women aren't asking to be part of, your culture, then the culture has in some way communicated a hostility that has not been solved, that they probably do not feel comfortable trying to reach out to fit in.
I think that would be true certainly probably till 1980s. I think 1990s and onwards. I mean, I come, so that you all know, I come from Africa. Totally different world. I land here, and let me tell you, I can see, my sister can see the difference between this country and Africa. So I think unfortunately, society-wise, everybody has to do their part, but here it's a lot more open than what we've got in Africa. And women here, for example, I mean, I'm teaching my daughter who's 4 and 5 to start talking with other kids and start networking. Unfortunately, because of how the society and the history has been, and obviously this is a much bigger problem and conversation, but one thing that needs to be taught is networking skills, kind of what we're talking about, communication. And women, unfortunately, are a little bit behind in figuring that part out, because obviously they've had, you know, so many other elements going on, and, you know, they perceive threat. But if they just go, it'll be a different reception today for sure, I can tell you.
And I would say too.
I would like to know why you are continually putting blame on a minority here.
I'm not blaming minority.
You just did.
I'm not.
You said it's on women.
No,
Can I
I'm
ask
saying
a different
overall,
question?
just as us, as society, there's both
And yet
sides.
we're all participants in society.
Yeah, they're both sides. I told you from the beginning, I said both sides have to do their parts, you know?
And then, yeah, so regarding your comment as well of the hostility, yeah, I believe too, it is, I have my older sister as well, you know, I brought her on our tech company, but there is a way of like, you know, how can we make it more approachable for women instead of like this hostility type of environment, right? And I think that's where public relations kind of comes in. A lot of like companies are now doing PR and public relations, like letting them know that, hey, like we want to empower women, but also minorities and like different aspects on that end as well. So I believe it's companies are changing. If not, they've already changed. Now just kind of like opening the doors and making people more aware of the situation on that.
And to Anand's point, like, I don't think it's necessarily blaming, but rather like observational about like the way we like educate and treat people like from a very young age, right? And we need to stop doing that. And so that starts from the bottom up. We do what we can, but like people are already adults by the time they get into the working world, right? So like if you like encourage boys to be social and encourage like young girls to just do certain things or be subservient or whatever, like obviously that's like a big societal problem, and we can't kind of close our eyes to that as where we are because of how we behaved in the past, right? And so when we have these, and all of us have issues that we carry with us like from childhood, right? And hopefully like the world is a better place now where we can make our own tools in order to deal with those issues like in ourselves. I think as an industry, we need to, well, we definitely like no longer, I think as an industry, we no longer say like a woman can't be an engineer. I mean, look at Marissa Mayer over at Google, right? Or is she at Yahoo now? She's at Yahoo. She was at Google, right? I mean, I think it's kind of like a cascading effect. As a small community here, like I think we're doing the right kind of work. Like I think Bass was saying, like look at the fantastic diversity here. We have this other space. I know that my friend Bo, who runs Spark Tank over here in the corner, he made sure to go out to the 4 women workspace and make sure that like everybody's welcome, like we're all on the same team here. And so those little things will add up, I think.
And I'll just add, it was not intended for women. I think the conversation went there. The original question was minorities and women, obviously. I think it's just there has to be both sides where, okay, they have to act and network as well. And that's, I mean, I gave you the example. 20 years and, you know, men would walk in and just say, help us get into this world. Yet, you know, minorities and women were lacking. I went to a conference over the weekend on Scottsdale, and I saw a female financial advisor. I went up to her and I said, wow, that's awesome. We need more of you here. It's a both sides equation. If you make yourself available, and that's why I said, I think a networking skills has to be more taught. Like, hey, go out there, communicate, network. That's how everybody progresses.
And if anybody acts like a jerk, screw them. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
There's
many opportunities.
And I know there's
we have a question from Facebook.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I mean,
Huh?
okay.
Yeah, question from Facebook.
Let's see. Oh, from a William, what's the best way to motivate a developer?
What?
No problem.
Yeah, that's a question.
So, okay.
Do developers drink tequila?
For those of you who can't see. So, no matter what you think, it is actually not money. Because if it's money, then they'll quit and find a better job. The thing is about that is appreciation, compliments, food. There's other stuff that goes through, and there's some psychiatric stuff that basically your brain is able to interpret as reward. If people aren't rewarding you, it could be money, depends on the individuals. But if people aren't rewarding or acknowledging you for your thing, why do anymore? You feel worthless. The best motivation I ever got was we were working hard on a project, and our boss came and said, everybody stop, we're playing Counter-Strike online right now. Let's go shoot each other. So we went online and we played games, and then we got our energy back up and we started playing. But for building camaraderie, being friends, being part of we all want to get this project out and letting people who are extra stressed be able to relax and know everybody's, capabilities. Motivating a developer really depends on that developer and individual. There's no right solution. It could be money, it could be food. For me, it was the energy from other people. I'm an extrovert. I have to socialize. If I'm sitting on a computer just hacking away all day, and then someone says, hey, let's go hang out, let's go do something, we do that for 2 hours, I can go back and last another 8 hours.
So it sounds like culture, right?
Yep.
Company culture.
Company culture.
I want to hear Jose's answer on that. Motivated developers. Because these are like you and Kevin are you guys don't have programming experience,
Right.
so I want to hear you guys' perspective, honestly.
His whip.
It's hard to put you on the spot.
Tell the CTO to make them work right.
Or Kevin.
Yeah, I can actually answer that question first, actually.
Go for it.
Sorry to put you on the hot seat.
No,
I'm curious.
No worries. The way I did it early on was, it's actually very simple. I was actually very similar to what happened with you, which was instead of just telling my developers, hey, let's go play, because they're not much into Counter-Strike. However, everyone enjoys food, right? So I just told all of them, hey, just stop working, guys. Let's go get some food. That's all I did. It was just let's just talk about ourselves. It's an opportunity for us to get to know each other, right? Because yes, it's true that we're working on this project, but at the same time, it doesn't hurt to get to know who that other person is and get to know what their likes are and interests. And that way, later on, you can find something more specific to them. And that's what I do, is I get to know each person individually.
Yeah,
That's what I
my
do.
experience has been money. Money is definitely what motivates them.
Don't say that.
I don't think it's wrong.
Everybody's rates just doubled.
Did you have one more question? And then after that.
For not only technical founders, did you ever feel that you needed to get a co-founder that was?
Did I ever expect or need to get a co-founder that was?
Yeah, if you look at Y Combinator and everything, they always tell you single founders don't work out because, like what you were mentioning, you can't do everything. Even if you know everything, you still can't do everything. So did you guys ever feel like you should have gotten a technical co-founder?
Yeah, and I did. I did get a technical co-founder because at the end of the day, you don't know what you don't know, and you need to bring the right people on board to lead you in that direction of that missing part.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I mean, I can see why the mantra is, hey, one is kind of dangerous and you want to have two, right? Obviously, and different skill sets, right? My CTO has completely different than mine. So yeah, absolutely, you have to. I think it's a critical element.
I'd go a step further and say you need 3, that way you have a tiebreaker.
Yeah. Well, I was trying for the third, but to fire that guy. Not bitter.
Well, we have gone over 5 o'clock.
Wow.
Yeah, normally we do like an hour 30 so you guys can network, but.
Thank you guys for the questions.
Thank you.